The tires hissed against the slick, winding asphalt of the Ozarks as the man navigated the dark corridors of the Bull Shoals area. It was deep into the night, and a rhythmic, hypnotic rain lashed against the windshield. Inside the cabin, his wife and children were dead to the world. Their soft breathing nearly lulled him into a trance. His eyelids grew heavy, flickering shut as the car began to drift toward the rain-slicked shoulder. Suddenly the silence was shattered. The car radio roared to life on its own, blasting the raw, distorted snarl of outsider punk played on a cigar box guitar. Through the cacophony, a voice boomed with supernatural energy. "I'm the Bull Shoals Boogie Man, and I'm with ya on WLLAO from beyond the veil." That was Zara Antarctica playing the Arkansas Shake. The announcer's voice cut through the static like a lightning bolt. "Wake yourself up, late-night driver. Here's more Zara Antarctica for ya." The music slammed into a frantic, jarring rockabilly beat. The driver jolted upright, his heart hammering against his ribs, his hands gripping the wheel with renewed white-knuckled intensity. The adrenaline washed away the sleep as he spotted the glowing neon sign of a gas station up ahead. He pulled over, the gravel crunching under his tires. He woke his family, ushering them inside for a much-needed stretch and a round of snacks. After paying for a large coffee and a handful of treats, they piled back into the car, the interior now smelling of chocolate and caffeine. As they buckled in, his wife turned to him, a playful smile on her face. "I was just reading a local legend about this area," she said. "Back in the 50s, there was a DJ at a station near here that shut down decades ago. He was killed during a massive storm. But the story goes that his ghost, the Bull Shoals Boogie Man, still broadcasts from the other side. When a driver needs him most," she giggled, shaking her head. "Can you imagine? Have you ever heard such a silly tale?" The driver didn't answer. He took a slow, steady sip of his coffee and looked down at the radio. There was no music, no shouting announcer, just the hollow, rhythmic hiss of dead static. He reached out, clicked the radio off, and pulled back onto the highway. "Never heard it," he whispered, under his breath. He added a silent thanks to the ghostly DJ for the life he still held in his hands. The rain had finally tapered off into a thick, clinging Ozark fog by the time the family reached the outskirts of Harrison. The driver, still buzzing from the caffeine and the ghostly encounter, kept the radio off, preferring the silence of the dark highway over the hiss of static. "You're awfully quiet," his wife remarked, resting her head against the window. "Still tired?" "Just thinking about that story you told," he replied, his eyes scanning the tree line. Just then, his headlights caught a figure standing on the shoulder, a man wearing a tattered, vintage leather jacket and a wide-brimmed hat, holding what looked like a weathered cigar box under one arm. The driver slammed on the brakes, the car skidding slightly on the damp pavement before coming to a halt. "Did you see him?" He gasped, his heart leaping into his throat again. "See who?" His wife asked, sitting up straight. "There's no one there." The driver looked into the rearview mirror. The road behind them was empty, swallowed by the mist. But as he went to shift back into drive, he noticed something on the dashboard. Tucked into the edge of the radio dial was a small, faded business card that hadn't been there before. He pulled it out with trembling fingers. It was yellowed with age, smelling faintly of ozone and old tobacco. In bold retro typeface, it read, WLLL-AM. The voice of the void keeping you between the lines since 1954. Request line, just scream. On the back, a handwritten note in charcoal black ink simply said, "Drive easy, brother. I've got the graveyard shift covered." From the back seat, his youngest daughter stirred in her sleep, clutching her stuffed animal. She let out a small, drowsy giggle. "Daddy, the guitar man says hi." The driver didn't ask questions this time. He tucked the card into his pocket, checked his mirrors, and pulled back onto the road. As he accelerated, a faint, rhythmic tapping started on the roof of the car, the exact tempo of a rockabilly drum beat matching the pulse of his own heart as they disappeared into the safety of the morning light. The sun began to crest over the Ozark pines, turning the fog into a golden haze. The driver pulled into a small, weathered scenic overlook. to let the engine rest. He stepped out, the cool morning air hitting his face, and reached for the business card in his pocket. He froze. Standing at the far end of the stone wall was an old man who looked like he had been carved out of a hickory tree. He wore faded overalls and a battered felt hat, and propped against his knee was a worn acoustic guitar with HGD etched into the wood. This was the man his daughter had seen. This was Hillbilly Guitar Dude. The old man didn't turn around, but he struck a chord, a deep, resonant sound that seemed to vibrate through the very ground. "Late night for a family man," he said, his voice like gravel rolling in a stream. I had some help staying awake," the driver stammered, thinking of the radio. Hillbilly Guitar Dude finally looked over, a knowing glint in his eyes. "Old Boogie? Yeah, he's got a loud mouth, but he's a good soul. Usually he's just the messenger, though. It's the music that does the heavy lifting." The old man nodded toward the sky, where a faint bluish light, not quite a star, not quite a plane, was fading into the morning light. "My buddy Zero Antarctica provided the tunes. He's from a bit further out than Harrison. Picks a guitar like it's made of starlight. He sends the signals down, Boogie broadcasts him from the veil, and he patted his guitar. I keep the ground level vibrations steady so folks like you don't drift off into the pines." The driver stared at him, bewildered. "You know them? A ghost and whatever Zero is." "The three of us have a bit of a circuit," Hillbilly Guitar Dude chuckled, strumming a quick, upbeat lick that sounded exactly like the rockabilly song from the radio. "The ghost, the alien, and the hillbilly. We keep the rhythm of the hills moving. Someone's got to look out for the travelers." From the car, his daughter waved through the window. "Look, Daddy. The guitar man is sharing his music." The old man tipped his hat to the little girl, then turned back to the driver. "You got a long way left, son, but you're through the curvy bits. Tell people you met the boogeyman. They'll think you're crazy. Tell them you saw an alien. They'll lock you up. But a man with a guitar?" He winked. "That's just Arkansas." As the driver walked back to his car, he turned to ask one more question, but the overlook was empty. Only a single glowing guitar pick etched with a strange cosmic symbol sat on the stone wall where the old man had been. He climbed back into the driver's seat, tucked the pick into the visor, and shifted into gear. The Ozarks were full of secrets, but for the first time in his life, he felt like he was finally in on the song.